Hey guys, today what we're going to do is we're going to learn the difference between elements and compounds. So our goal is uh, students will know that chemical formulas are made up of chemical symbols and atoms denoted by a subscript. Students will be able to understand how to identify which elements are in the compound, and finally students will be able to record the number of atoms found in a chemical formula. So let's look at this. We're going to start with elements. Okay, we've worked with elements, we've looked at elements. They are found on the periodic table. Most of them will have one letter, others will have two. If there is two, you're going to notice that the first letter is capitalized, the second letter is lowercase. Elements are made of pure substance. They are a pure substance. Um, and then we know that elements, their smallest particle are atoms. So neon is made up of neon atoms. Argon is made up of argon atoms, and helium is made up of helium atoms. So if we look at this slide here, we have capital C, lowercase l, that is chlorine. Okay, so that's an element. Here we have two of them together, that's an element. Again, the symbols always begin with a capital letter. If you look at helium here, it's got two letters. The H is capital. If it has two letters, the second one is lowercase. Okay, that's going to be important to remember as we begin to look at compounds. So if we look here, a compound is when two or more of these elements have combined. If you look at the image, we have two hydrogens that have bonded with oxygen, okay, and that is a water molecule. So two or more elements combine, they make compounds. One way to remember this is if you think of a compound word like football. A compound means there are two words that come together to create one. So when we're looking at compounds, we have two or more elements that come together. If we look here, here's another example. We have the element carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. When they chemically combine, when they react, they make a compound. Here's another one. We have Na, sodium, and Cl, chlorine. When they come together, you have two elements that makes a compound. Here's an easy way to know if you get a little bit confused if it's a compound versus an element. Again, look at your periodic table. Elements are found there in those element boxes. You won't find a compound, for example, NaCl, in one of those element boxes. Here's H2O, which is water. Again, you won't find H2O in one of those boxes. So let's practice it here. I'm going to go ahead and present element symbols and compound formulas. So you're going to determine if it's an element or a compound. So if you look here, we have capital H with the little subscript 2. So is that an element or a compound? It's an element. There is only one capital letter, which means it's an element. You can find a capital H, hydrogen, on the periodic table. Even though it has a subscript 2, it's considered an element. Remember, a compound must have two or more elements. If you look at the next one, we have a capital H and a lowercase e. That is also an element. Remember, if it has two letters, the first letter is capital, the second letter is going to be lowercase. If we look at this, we have OH4. How many capital letters do you have? We have one right here, oxygen. Here's another one, hydrogen. Because we have two capital letters, we know that we have at least two elements, and that makes it a compound. NaCl, how many elements are there? If you look on the periodic table, you can find Na in one of the boxes, and you can find Cl in a box. That's sodium and chlorine. The trick to this, the shortcut, is count capital letters. If it only has one, like this one and this one, it's an element. If it has more than one capital letter, it is a compound. If you look at this, we have a capital C, lowercase l. You might think it's a capital I, but it's not, okay? Capital C, lowercase l, that is an element. We have a capital C, we have a lowercase o. There's only one capital letter, so that's an element. You can find that on the periodic table. Capital C, capital O, two capital letters, it's a compound.